Hey guys, this is Sergeant Phoenix back in the action, and today we are doing another Yu-Gi-Oh deck profile. If you can hear that bit of my voice, it's because I do have a bad throat. I'm going to try and still do this deck profile because I'm not going to let this get in the way. So let's go. This profile is on Trickstars, which Blue Angel used before she becomes Blue Girl and then turns into Blue Maiden. And Trickstars are mostly a damaging deck, and they are quite good actually. So, the first one is 3 copies of Trickstar Candina. And this card's effect, when this card is normal summoned, you can add 1 Trickstar card from your deck to your hand. Each time your opponent activates a spell or trap card, inflict 200 damage to them immediately after it resolves. Like I've said, this deck mostly can use damage effects, which are actually quite alright. At least when my opponents use Trickstars, they always use the ones that do damaging, because there is one that allows you to double the damage your opponent takes. So this one, 3 copies of Trickstar Mandrake. Now this card's effect, if this card is sent from your hand to the graveyard, you can special summon this card in defense position but banish it when it leaves the field. If this card is sent to the graveyard as a link material for a link summon of a Trickstar monster, you can target one monster an opponent's link monster points to, destroy it, and you can only use the effect of this though once per turn. If you don't know about VRAINS, Blue Angel is a member. She was like one of the popular. Blue Angel was a popular character for the VRAINS profiles, and she was like a big celebrity in VRAINS. And and this is her deck, which also has links. Anyway, back to Trickstars. So Lilybell's effect. If this card is added to your hand, except by drawing it, you can special summon it from your hand. You can only use the effect of this card once per turn. This card can attack directly when this card inflicts battle damage to your opponent. You can target 1 Trickstar monster in your graveyard and add it to your hand. And I think Trickstars are actually I would say they're actually a good starter deck to use if you ever wanted to make them. Some of them are quite tricky to get your hands on. Depending on how much you're willing to spend on them. I got these from a bunch of people who were getting rid of tons of spare Trickstars, and I had a friend working on a deck, but he got bored of it. I wanted a Trickstar deck for profile purposes and collection purposes, so I got them off their hands. Now this card, Trickstar Licorice, its quick effect. You can reveal this card in your hand, then target 1 Trickstar monster you control except this one, except the Trickstar Licorice. Special summon this card, and if you do, return that monster to the hand. Each time a card or cards added to your opponent's hand, inflict 200 points of damage to them. Like I said, some of them mostly rely on damaging you if you're against them. Now, Trickstar Narcissus, I can't pronounce. And this card's effect, while I have 3 copies of it, if your opponent takes effect damage, except during the damage step, you can special summon this card from your hand. You can special summon this. You can only use the effect of this card once per turn. Each time your opponent activates a monster effect in their hand or graveyard, inflict 200 points of damage to them immediately after it resolves. I added these ones. They're not in the deck, but they are quite good to use actually. 3 Tethys Goddess of Light, and the reason I added these ones is when you draw a furry monster, except during the damage step, you can reveal one of those monsters, draw 1 card. This card must be first upon the field to this effect to activate. I added this one because since the deck's mostly furries and it's got an alright attack, and it can allow you to draw some more cards, you could add some trick stars that you'd need in pot. You'd really need. So you never know. Next we have 2 copies of Trickstar Nightshade, and this card's effect. If this card is sent to the graveyard as a link material for a link summon of a Trickstar monster, you can special summon. Pardon. The dry throat just caught up to me. Now this card's effect, what was up to you? Special summon this card but banish it when it leaves the field. You can only use the effect of this though once per turn. So when it's used for a link material, you can special summon it, but you have to banish it when it leaves if you're using it for another link. Next we have Trickstar Rodod, if that's how you pronounce it. You can discard 1 Trickstar card, then target 1 Trickstar link monster in your graveyard, special summon it. You can only use the effect of Trickstar Rodod once per turn. Each time a card is banished from your opponent's graveyard immediately, inflict 200 damage to your opponent for each card banished. So the damaging, and this is honest, if you don't know what this card is, you need to watch GX's subs. And I do have this on my Time Lord deck profile. And I think I don't know my Wave of Light. I put this in the Wave of Light deck. I have a lot of decks. Well, I haven't profiled yet. But I'll explain what it does. So during the main phase, you can turn this face-up card from the field to your hand. And during the damage step, when the light monster you control battles, quick effect, you can send this card from your hand to the graveyard. That monster gains attack equal to the attack of the opponent's monster. So let's say I'm up against Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon, and I have Ancient Gear Golem, and my opponent goes to attack me. Unless I use like a DNA transfer, is it DNA transfer? Yeah, DNA transplant to make it a light attribute monster. Then I could use this, so it needs a light monster because Ancient Gears are Earth monsters, except Chaos Giant, which is a dark. And that was actually a power excuse. But let's say I have a Blue Eyes Ultimate, it attacks, I use this. Then then my Blue Eyes will gain 4,500 attack points. That would equal 7,500. So if you want to use Honest, you have to make sure it's in a light attribute deck. And it is actually a really good card to have. Right, now we're up to our spell cards. Let's get over with. First we have Trickstar Light Stage. When this card is activated, you can add a Trickstar monster from your deck to your hand. Once per turn, you can target a set card your opponent spell a trap card zone while this card is in face up on the field. While this card is in the field zone, that set card cannot be activated until the end phase. Your opponent must activate it during the end phase, or else send it to the graveyard. Each time a Trickstar monster you control inflicts battle damage to your opponent, inflict 200 damage to them. So that means I'll lose an additional 200 if I was against it. Hold on. Next we have Trickstar Light Arena, and this is another field spell. If you link summon a Trickstar monster, you can target 1 Trickstar monster in your graveyard that was used as its material, special summon it in defense position, but negate its effects, and you can only use this card's effect once per turn. Once per turn, you can target 1 set card your opponent's spell or trap card zone, while this card is face up this card's in the field zone. That set card cannot be activated until the end phase. Your opponent must activate it during the end phase or else return it to the hand. So it's like that one, but that one has an added effect just for sure. Next we have 2 copies of Trickstar Boquet. That's it. And looks more like a florist card, but yeah. Target 1 Trickstar monster you control and 1 face-up monster on the field. Return that trickster monster to your hand, and if you do, the other monster gains attack equal to the original attack of the returned monster. Until at the end of this turn, you can only use the effect of this card once per turn. Next, I added this one. 2 copies of Cards from the Sky. And this card's effect, banish 1 light furry monster from your hand, and if you do, draw 2 cards. You cannot special summon or conduct your battle phase the turn you activate this card. Just in case you need any extras, but you know, it's the best I can do. Next, you added polymerizations, which let you use monsters from your hand and field as fusion materials to summon a fusion monster from your extra deck. But you have to make sure it's the right ones for fusions. Next, we have our last field. Hold on a minute. I thought I had it. Here we go. I knew I had a third one actually. I was thinking. That was a conundrum. I actually did check the deck if it was in order, but I must have missed that by accident. It's only me. Now we're on traps, and then we'll reach our extra deck. First, we have 3 copies of Trickster Reincarnation. Banish your opponent's entire hand, and if you do, they draw the same number of cards. You can banish this card from your graveyard, then target 1 Trickstar monster in your graveyard, special summon it. This can come in handy in case your opponent has a really good hand on their turn, and you've got that face down. You can just get rid of it, but you have to make sure they don't get the same hand, because that happened to someone when they dueled me. I ended up drawing the same cards I wanted, and they were only 2 cards that I wanted. I had 3 copies of it in a deck. Next, we have Jar of Avarice, and I actually like this card because it can come in really good hand. Target 5 cards in your graveyard except Jar of Avarice. Shuffle them all 5 into the deck, then draw 1 card. You can only use this card once per turn. And this card I do consider to be really good, because let's say if you need some cards back in your deck, but you put them all in your graveyard, you can just do that. Okay, next we have Break Off Trap All. And this card's effect, when a link monster is linked, someone destroy all monsters on the link. All monsters on the field that are not linked. So if they don't point to that link, then they get destroyed. Which could actually come in really good hand, depending on what link you're using. And you'd have to make sure you're not going to get rid of any cards you could use as an advantage. So you'd have to make sure that if you're using links, you've got to make sure they point to your links, or they're being pointed by your opponents. Next, we have Compulsory Evacuation Device, and this just returns 1 monster on the field to the owner's hand. Not a very effective card, but you know, you never know. Hold on, I needed to organise these. Right, and now we're on the extra deck. The first one are 3 copies I have of Trickstar Band Sweet Guitar, and this requires a Trickstar Link monster and 1 Trickstar monster. This card's effect damage inflicted to your opponent, Trickstar. Here it is, that's the one I was talking about. Effect damage inflicted to your opponent by your Trickstar Link monster linked to this card is doubled. If your opponent takes damage by a Trickstar monster's effect, this card gains an attack equals to the damage they took. Once per turn during the end phase, if this card attacked this turn, the attack gained from this effect returns to 0. Then you can add 1 Trickstar monster from your graveyard to your hand. So that is quite I actually do think Trickstars are really good. Right. Yeah, that's like, what the hell? Someone was not, someone not. I was messing with this deck. There it is. Next we have 3 Trickstar Crimson Hearts. And I was drinking the water. And this only needs 2 Trickstars, pointing here and here. Each time a Trickstar monster is normal or special summoned to a zone this card points to, gain 200 life points. You can discard 1 Trickstar card, both players draw 1 card. But if your life points are at least 2,000 or higher than your opponent's when this effect was activated, you draw 2 cards instead. You can only use the effect of that. So that can give you an advantage. Sorry, it's 2 copies, not 3. If I said 3 copies. Here it is. Next one is 3 copies of Trickstar Holy Angel. This needs 2 that point down. 2 and the 2. So each time a Trickstar monster is normal or special summoned to a zone this card points to, inflict 200 points of damage to your opponent. Trickstar monsters this card points to cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects. If your opponent takes damage by a Trickstar monster, this card gains attack equal to the damage they took until the end of this turn. Right, so I'm only down to a certain number, so. Next we have Trickstar Black Cat Bat, which is kind of a weird name. Yeah, but if you look at the design. And this needs 2 as well, but they point side by side. Each time a monster or monsters this card points to is destroyed by battle or card effect and sent to the graveyard, inflict 200 damage to your opponent. Each time your opponent takes damage by a Trickstar monster's effect, base up monsters they control lose 200 attack by each monster this card points to until the end of this turn. Some of the links are alright, some of them are like, they could have done better. And here's one, Trickstar Delphinium. I can't really say it. This only needs 2. This needs 2 Trickstar monsters, which are free. So technically, if I have a link 2 and a normal Trickstar monster, that'll be free. So I can summon that 1 up and 2 down sides. When this card declares an attack while pointing to a Trickstar monster, you can target 1 banished Trickstar card up to the number of link monsters opponent controls, then add them to your hand. And if you do, this card gains 1,000 attack for each card added until the end of this term. So this could actually give you a good advantage. Right. Now we're up to just our 1 cards, and this one is Trickstar Bloom, and this needs 1 level 2 or lower Trickstar monster. If this card is link summoned, you can make your opponent draw 1 card. If a face-up Trickstar monster this card points to is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can inflict 200 damage to your opponent for each card in their hand, and you can only activate the effect of this card per turn. And it was only a link 1 to it, and it points down. This one's a link 2, Trickstar Divaridis, which is 2 there and there, and this is 2 level 3 or lower Trickstar monsters it needs, so there and there it points. So you can point it there to help, or there, depending on where you want to put your monsters. You can only control 1 Trickstar Diva. You can only control 1 of these cards. If this card is special summoned, you can inflict 200 damage to your opponent. If your opponent normal or special summons a monster, inflict 200 damage to your opponent. Now, like I said, this deck's mostly damaging. Like, I use my Time Lords mostly for damaging. And I'm actually working on rebuilding my Time Lords to focus on the ones that are most useful. Next we have what I consider the one of the Trickstar's top cards, Trickster Bella Madonna, which is a link 4, which as you see points up, side, and two down. This needs 2 Trickstars, so you'd need 2 link 2 Trickstars to summon it, or a link 3 or a link and a link 1. Now, while this link summon card points to no monsters, it is unaffected by other cards. Activated effects. If this card points to no monsters, you can inflict 200 points of your damage for each Trickstar monster in your graveyard with a different name. And you can only use the effect of Trickstar Bella Madonna once per turn. So, as long as that got nothing pointing to this, none of my cards, none of my opponents, I could do a lot of damage. I could do some fair bit of damage with it. It's one of, and that is actually one of the deck's top cards. I do think Trickster. I think honestly that GX category, this would probably be like a close to a strong raw yellow to a decent obelisk blue deck. Because Trickstars are actually quite good. You just got to make sure when you're building the deck, if you want to put it to a really powerful potential, you have to make sure it's built up to make sure you can damage your opponent since it's focused on damaging. One of my friends had he has a Trickstar deck, and he even said there's one card, I can't remember what the card was, but he was looking for one card that could help him do a lot of more damage, which could make his deck really powerful against opponents. And I used my Time Lords, but I still managed to beat him. Because I kept adding because I kept getting the Time Lords I needed to beat him. And I've already and on my Time Lord deck profile, I have said which I think would be the most use if you want to build your own Time Lord deck, which ones you should mostly focus on if you want to build a really powerful, which is Sandayan, Lazayan, Metayon, Zephyr, Camion's a good one. Kamion's a good one. Zaphian, is it Zaphian or no? It's the blue. Actually, it's the water one, which is a female, and she returns spell and traps back to the deck. There's a few others that I've got in my head what would be useful, but you know, if you look at my deck profile, I've commented on the Time Lords, you'll see what I'm talking about. When you look at their effects, you can even comment down what you think of Time Lords, and comment down what you think of this deck, and if you wanted to add a card in or get rid of some cards, what would it be? I'll be looking at my treasure chest of decks to see what'll be the next deck to profile. But comment down below if you want a request of a certain deck. And like and subscribe, but until then, this is Sergeant Phoenix, over and out.